Okay, so you just got your makeup in the mail and you might be a little nervous, you might be a little unsure of what's gonna happen, but that is why I'm here. I'm your personal makeup assistant to walk you through step by step what to do when you get your first box in the mail. First things first, I want you to grab your palette, take the slip off, and then just set it down for a second. Then I want you to find all of your lovely tins, and on the back of them, they actually say what they are. Put all of your tins upside down in front of you on the table, and I want you to put them in piles of what they are. So put the highlight shades in one, your contour in one, your bronzer, your lip and cheeks, and all your eyeshadows. Okay, now that we have our piles, I want you to find your two highlight shades. There should be one that's a little bit darker and one that's a little bit lighter. Go ahead and just pop them out, and you're just gonna pop them in to your palette because it's magnetic. I personally like to have the lighter one on top and the dark one below, but it really doesn't matter as long as you can tell the difference. Now again, these highlight shades act as your foundation and your concealer color. So this lighter one is like your concealer color, and the darker one should actually match your skin tone the best. Okay, now snag that scary contour shade that you might be a little bit nervous to use, but you're gonna trust me because that's why I'm here. We're gonna pop that one in next, and then fill in your palettes with the lip and cheeks, the bronzers, and the illuminator. Once you have those in your palette, you can also add in the eyeshadows if you got some eyeshadows, but your palette should look something like this. It might be bigger, it might be smaller, it might be more full, it might be less full, but for today's makeup application, I'm gonna do something super simple and just use 2 brushes to apply. Now, before we even start this makeup application, I want you to understand that cream foundation is different than the liquid and the powder foundation that you might be using for the last 10 years. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people are using too much product, which then causes a ton of issues. So we really want to use a small amount of product, and remember that we can always build coverage if we need it. We don't want to put on too much, okay? Some people love to use a primer. I personally really don't because my skin has had years to adjust to it. But if you do like to use a primer, just make sure that your primer does not have silicone in it. Otherwise, it's going to slide all over the place. Gripping primers work really great. Now for today's application, I'm using the detail brush and the blush and bronzer brush. I'm going to use the detail brush. I'm going to take the side of my brush and I'm just going to lightly tap into the contour shade. You really don't need a lot. We can just start with a little, especially if you've never contoured before. A little bit goes a long way. As you can see, I'm creating a 3 on the side of my face, and what this is going to do is bring in the hairline, chisel the cheekbone, and chisel the jawline. A good rule of thumb for your cheekbone is to go from the top of the ear towards the mouth and stop about halfway. I like to contour my nose just a little bit. This is definitely not a must-have. I like to do it, so I do it. I also put a little bit under my bottom lip to make my bottom lip look a little bit bigger. The whole purpose of a contour is to essentially chisel and sculpt out your features. Now, because we're using a small amount of product, it's not going to be a big deal if we go into our main highlight shade with the same brush. So again, I'm just going to pat a little bit of product onto my brush, and then I'm just going to be placing this underneath my contour, around my mouth, and on this side as well, and around my nose. I like to call this my beard area, so that's where I apply my main shade. Now I'll take that same brush and I'm just going to flip it. So I'm going to use a small end and go a little bit of product into this brightening shade. And I'm just going to place a little bit on the inner and outer corners of my eyes. I'll do a little bit on my cupid's bow, down my nose, and up into my T-zone. Now I want you to check your face and see if it's somewhat similar to mine. If so, we're good to hit the next step. I personally love to blend this in first before I add any blush or bronzer. So I'll start with my lightest shades first, and I'm taking that big fluffy end of this brush and I'm essentially just patting this in. And because the colors are already where they're at, we're not having to do anything crazy and big. We're essentially just blending them in together so that the colors marry. Once my brightener is blended, I'm going to move to my main. Now, because this coverage is buildable, you might still see blemishes pop through or sunspots pop through, but don't stress. We're going to take care of that at the very end. So last thing we're going to blend is our contour, and I like to bring that up into the hairline, and then the jawline needs to come down. Now your face should look something like this. It's all blended in. Again, it's a very lightweight application. It shouldn't feel like there's anything on your face, and if it does, you've used too much. Next, I want you to grab that blush and bronzer brush, and I'm going to use a smaller dense end and go into my lip and cheek shade, and I just get a little bit of product. Our lip and cheeks are very pigmented, so usually you just need a little bit of product. Now again, all of our products are buildable, so if you really like blush, feel free to just pump it on until you get the desired look. Now these dual as our lip color as well, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of product and put it on my lips. Okay, now the fun part, add a little bit of bronzer. I'm going to use just a little bit of bronzer. I'm going to flip my brush and use this bigger, fluffier end. I'm actually going to pinch the brush and I'm just going to press a couple times. You do not need a lot of bronzer. Again, because all of our colors are so pigmented, a little goes a very long way. The whole purpose is to warm up your skin, make your face look a little bit more inviting. We're just adding to the places where we would naturally get a suntan, which is usually the top of the forehead, top of the nose, and on the cheeks. Now the last and final piece of our 3D foundation is our illuminator, which in the makeup world is like a highlighter. This is just meant to give a little bit of glow to the skin. So I like to do the cupid's bow, the tip of my nose, my my cheekbones and under our brow bones. Now this is the part where if you have beautiful skin, you have no blemishes, you have no sunspot, you have no distractions, you're done. But if you're like me and you struggle with blemishes, all we're gonna do essentially is just spot treat those spots. So I'm just gonna take the small end of my detail brush and I'm gonna go into my main shade and essentially just spot treat any troubled area. We're not gonna do a full face of makeup all over again. We're just doing a very small amount on the spots that are distracting. So I'm using such a light hand when it comes to applying this extra product. If it's in your blush area, I usually just like to add a little bit of blush to that spot versus trying to use my main shade. And there we have our 3D foundation application. We are all done. Now you can choose to set your face with a loose translucent setting powder or use a setting spray. It's totally up to you. Some ladies like a more dewy look. Some ladies like more of a matte look. If you like more of a matte, I would definitely recommend using a loose translucent setting powder very lightly on your skin. Now a couple last things to know. If your main highlight shade does not match your skin properly, please reach out to me ASAP and we'll make sure to get your color swapped so we have the right colors for you. If for whatever reason any of your products come damaged, you can actually email in corporate and let them know and they'll make things right with you. And as always, if you have any questions, any problems, anything at all, like I said earlier, I'm like your personal makeup assistant. So just reach out to me and I would love to help you in any which way that I possibly can. Thank you so much for trusting me with your new makeup routine and I hope you love it as much as I do. Bye!